Welcome. Adele Anderson from Life Coach Adele, and this is another episode of Good Grief Relief. I want to ask you, have you ever experienced something that took you to your knees, felt traumatized, and grieved the loss of someone you love? With a hand over my heart, I send you blessings, but also I want to let you know, or maybe you already know, that unresolved grief and trauma not only changes how we view ourselves in the world, but how we interact with ourselves in the world. And that has to do with motivation. I bet if you lost somebody, you had this thing that the same old routine is not going to work for you anymore. It has become imperative that you find your passion, find your purpose. And this is a key because after grief and trauma, our brain has different requirements. Life challenges all of everything that's about us, but also it impacts our ability to maintain motivation and therefore set goals for the future. If we're traumatized, the right side of our brain apparently shuts down. And not only that, if we've been traumatized, we're more likely to repeat sort of behavior. I was listening to a podcast the other day, or an audiobook the other day, and he suggested that your brain is trying to close the trauma loop. And so it's putting you into a situation, probably a bad situation, say if we're talking a relationship, where you've been traumatized and your system is trying to close this trauma loop. And so it will find a way to get you into that behavior again, so that this impacted energy within your body gets activated, and hopefully with awareness, the loop can close. But without awareness, that doesn't happen. So the next series of about 5 or 6 podcasts is all going to be to do the key concepts of motivation after trauma, along with some practical exercises. So here are some skills and attributes that can be affected when you are grieving or feeling traumatized. And I mean, they're really married, they're together. So emotional regulation becomes disrupted, which leads to a heightened sense of emotional responses and mood swings, and difficulty managing intense situations or feelings. And our coping is often overwhelmed with these emotions. It becomes a significant challenge. And then we find that, our cognitive functioning is impaired as well. Things like concentration, memory, decision-making, difficulty focusing on tasks or processing information, making sound judgments. And we know this as widows in particular, so many decisions to be made. We want to make the right decisions, and yet they seem harder to make, even if that was something that was so natural to us in the past. But now we find that it's a little bit harder. Interpersonal relationships can be strained because we struggle with communication, trust, or intimacy issues. And sometimes that leads to isolation and difficulty in connecting with others. So if you're there, it's the least desirable thing that I want to see in clients that are struggling. And I really encourage you to take that courageous step and reach out. Our self-esteem and our self-identity gets eroded. It actually impacts our sense of identity. For example, I used to be a wife, but now I'm no longer a wife, I'm a widow. And so I used to have a husband, and all of the titles or the rules that kind of went with that title are now gone. So this is especially associated with a significant loss, and it changes our perception of our self-worth and purpose. So we see things like guilt coming up when we're, moving through the different stages of grief. And so that really, affects our self-esteem and our self-worth. Of course, sleep patterns are disrupted. Some people experience more insomnia, even nightmares. So lots of types of disturbances of sleep, which can then lead to fatigue. And that further impacts our emotional and cognitive functioning. Coping skills and adaptability are often effective. People may struggle with new challenges or changes in their life when they've had such a overwhelming change that's happened. So effective coping strategies may be replaced with less effective behaviors, such as avoidance or substance abuse. So again, this gives us an opportunity to reach out. We can see that we're struggling. And so, don't struggle alone. You can move through these processes more naturally and easily when someone, understands the process of the mind and how behaviors are healed. Communication skills, expressing thoughts and emotions. You may withdraw from communication or feel more irritable, more defensive in interaction. So if we see these sparks of mood swings, then we just know it's normal as part of our grieving and trauma process. And yet it's not really helping us. And so how do we improve ourselves so that we can manage the situation more effectively is, again, to reach out. Your sense of safety and trust can be overwhelmed. Your ability to form new relationships, trust others, and feel secure in many aspects of life are interrupted. Stress and grief and trauma over time can result in physical manifestations. We know that we impact overall health. I was just at a grief and trauma workshop, and almost every illness known to man was in there as a long-term manifestation of traumas. So changes in appetite would be normal, but maybe you might feel other physical symptoms arising. We know that, grief that is new to our system, grief and trauma, changes our mood, and that's, understandable. But left into the chronic phase, 4 months or longer, when we're not processing and integrating the depth of the challenge, it actually has a chance to become a part of our personality. And this is where I cringe. I really feel that our pain becomes our power. When we learn to transform that compressed energy, that explosive energy that's inside us, because there's so much impact from these life events, that when we release that energy comes back to us tenfold, and it is fabulous, and it is a remarkable growth that you experience. And so that's where I want to see the challenge go, into your personal power and your joy in your future in life. And so it's all about creating coping strategies and resilience, coping with adversity, our ability to bounce back, because we know more things are coming down the pipe, because life is like that, right? So we want you to reach out and seek a professional for any trauma-informed care, because it plays a critical role in mitigating the effects of all of these things. And so where I would like to go today is on reflection and self-discovery. So in phase 1, or in part 1 of this series, we're going to talk about certain questions, and for you to maybe have a journal handy, a piece of paper handy, where you can enter a state of reflection. So, meditation, deep contemplation, journaling could all be helpful at this point. So my first question that I'm going to ask is, what are the values that guide your life? This encourages you to reflect on your core values, the principles and beliefs that you consider essential to you. And it opens up a door to explore what you find most meaningful and important to you. So question number 1 is, what are the values that guide your life? And you can stop the podcast here and then restart it for question number 2, which is, when do you feel most alive and fulfilled? By asking about these moments of fulfillment, you can identify activities and experience that resonate with you on a deep level. And this can provide you insight into your passions and sources of joy, which are really those uplifting moments in the moment of crisis that elevate us and give us relief. And so simply by asking yourself the question, when do I feel most alive and fulfilled? And this will bring some joy back into your psyche right now. So please pause the recording until you're ready. And then question number 3 is, what goals or dreams have you always had? So no matter how big or small, this is tapping into long ago, maybe long before you ever met your significant other, long before this event occurred in your life. It taps into long-term aspirations and personal dreams, things that you've always wanted to achieve, and a glimpse into your desires and your motivations. So what goals or dreams have you always had? And to simply write them down. Number 4, if you need to pause, simply pause. Number 4, what aspect of your life gives you a sense of purpose? It's a powerful motivator. Purpose is passion. It's driven intrinsically, and we're going to learn more about intrinsic motivation. It's completely different for people that have suffered trauma and grief to set goals. The old style of goal setting does not work for us because there's different factors that are in play, and purpose is one key. So by asking yourself about what gives you a sense of purpose, you can consider the broader meaning and significance in your actions and your relationships. So what aspects of your life give you a sense of purpose? Excellent. And finally, if you could change one thing about your life, what would that be? This really asks you to identify areas of dissatisfaction, of unmet needs. And this is really key if you're in the 40 to 60 range, because our brains are still evolving. You know, we can see the kids grow up, and that's easy to see. But it's less easy to see what our brain requires at different ages. So as our brain is evolving, quite often midlife brings dissatisfaction. And it's not a challenge. It's actually a celebration to say that you've arrived at the cusp of the next new beginning. It's looking for passion and purpose. So this provides you valuable insights into what you perceive as lacking in your life and what you wish to improve. So highlight these priorities for change. These questions are all designed to delve us into the deeper aspects of your individual values, your passions, your aspirations, and areas of importance. It requires you to delve deep into rich and personal responses that foster a better understanding of what things matter most to you. So thank you for joining me today. My name is Adele Anderson from Life Coach Adele. This was another episode of Good Grief Relief. And if you would like help, assistance with your goals, your goal setting, your intrinsic motivation, and anything about finding relief and passion for a joy-filled future, then connect with me. Until then, I wish you a beautiful day and stay well. Bye now.